Okay, first we are going to divide the paper into eighths on both sides, horizontally and vertically. So that's quarters. Okay, now we do it again, 2/8. And the best way to do that is to fold this edge to this first line here, and that will divide our row here exactly in half. So we turn over this edge to this fold right there. And we do the same thing on this side. Okay, now we do these edges. Alright, so we got our grid. Now what we're going to do is fold along the diagonals. Now we already had the other diagonal, but I'll just reinforce that. Okay. And here we're going to basically make a blintz fold, folding all the points to the center. Make sure they're nicely lined up, obviously. And unfold. And now what we're going to do is fold along the halfway point between these two, and all four quadrants. So to do that, we're going to take this point here and fold it where this fold happens right there. So we just fold that up. Should be nicely lined up on the center line. Fold. Same thing on the other side. Simple stuff. Same thing over here. here. Okay, so now we've got our grid. If we turn the paper over, you can kind of see this pattern where we've got a large, if you're holding it horizontal and vertical like this, as opposed to like this, so we're holding it like this, we see a diamond shape with a square in the middle. So if we concentrate on this square right here, and imagine these offshoots, 1, 2, 3, 4, going off to all the corners, what we're going to do is we're going to pinch on these corners, and we're essentially going to flatten the model and sink this center square, and this being the center square here. So to do that, we're just going to pinch the corners, pinch, 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 pinch. So there's that center square, and then we just work it and sink it until it's nicely sunk. So we have a shape that looks like this. So again, it's that smaller center that these diagonals feed into. We sink that. So now we have this shape, and what we're going to do is you're going to want to hold it so that the open end is facing away and the sunken point is facing toward you. And on each one of these flaps, we'll be performing the following fold. If we take a look at this and we see and allocate and isolate this triangle here, and that is from this point to this point to this point here, we're going to fold along the angle bisector for this triangle and then mirror that same fold for this triangle, bringing this point down. So essentially we're bringing this point down, but we're collapsing and folding this little triangle here. Best way to do that is to first fold along the angle bisector. So between this fold, you're going to take this edge and fold it to this line, but only crease until you reach this line here. And to do that, we just fold up and over. So here is the line right there, and then we crease. Best to pick up the model. So now we're going to fold this down, but folding the corresponding crease along the other edge there, we then are able to flatten it, keep everything. You want to make sure that this is lined up nicely to the center line, and that's the fold that we're making there. So as you can see, we did an angle bisector for this triangle and a mirroring angle bisector for this triangle here. And that's the shape that we're looking to achieve. Now we do that on all four sides. So again, on this side we'll be folding down on the diagonal that's already existing. This gets a new crease from this point to this point here, and then this flattens nicely and gives us this nice flat shape. And of course, try and make these as perfect as possible. Turn it over. Doing the same thing. Remember, you're always going to be doing it from the blunt side here, the part where this is sunken. It's this triangle. sure that those match nicely. Fold up to that horizontal, which becomes a horizontal crease when we fold this over, and then we fold this down along that diagonal that's existing. Hold that guy, push that guy into place there nicely, and we have our shape. Okay, so if you've done everything correctly, your model should look like this so far. And now we're going to open all of these corners back out, these flaps back out, and flatten them. So here's a bit of a tricky part. What we need to do is, if we unfold this corner, you can see this diamond shape. So what needs to happen is, we basically need to sink this diamond shape. And to do that, we'll do it on this corner here. So to do that, the best way to do it is to open it out just a little bit. You're not creasing anything at this point, you're just holding it. And the folds that make up this diamond shape, when you're holding it like this, convert them to mountain folds. In essence, you're flattening this. You're making this its own little shape, or flatten it, so that it wants to look like that. And then we'll be introducing a new crease here, but you then take and fold along the existing diagonal here. And if we look at this, we'll see it kind of has this house shape. You'll be folding, tucking this paper here while flattening in this way. If you do the same thing on the other side, flatten, we can now push these two corners together, essentially sinking that diamond shape. And we're going to do this on all four sides, so you get to see it again. So we take the flap, we flatten it just a little bit, convert all edges of this diamond shape to mountain folds. Because we're basically, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring this corner to this corner, closing them like a book. And in order to do that, we have to push this paper, and we'll be introducing a new crease around this area here. And it really only wants to fall in one spot. And so we're holding, you'll have a line that lines up here when you know you've done it right. We do the same thing on the other side. Again, you're pushing and folding along this crease until you have essentially sunken that edge there. So it looks like that. And you can really think of it as, you're essentially sinking this and inside reverse folding all kind of at the same time. So here's that diamond shape again. Convert all of the folds that make it up into mountain folds from this angle. Find this diagonal that runs to the middle point. Push until that gets a little flatter, and now we can fold that in half. Doing the same thing on the other side. And see, these are the new creases that we'll be introducing when we actually then push and flatten this. And here's the line that lines up nicely. And we flatten. And then we do this one more time. like this. And if we examine it, it's 4 flaps with the corners sunken. With these edges, I guess, are not really corners, but these guys are essentially they're sinks, and the tips are there. And here is that original square that we sunk in the very beginning. And so at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to open the model up slightly. We're not going to completely unfold everything, but what we're trying to do here is get it so that this is unsunk and that square is nice and flat again. So the model is going to become 3D. It won't lay flat, but just very carefully open out. Keeping these, you want to keep these edges and these flaps as folded as possible until you have something that kind of looks like this. Right. So now we take one corner and we look inside, and you see there's the triangle shape. And when we fold it together, and kind of hold it in this manner, we see that we have a little inner flap here. So whatever we do here, you could have that flap on the left pointed so that the edge of the flap is on the right, or you could do it so that it's on the left. But whichever side you choose, make sure that it's consistent as you work your way around. And what we're basically going to do here is I'll keep it like this. So you want to hold it in this manner, hold the model in this manner, and you'll notice that if you, with all the grid lines and everything that we created, you can, with the flap folded along the right, pointed so that this edge is pointed on the right, you can start to fold this down, and it's going to fold down on these existing creases, but then you have this big hump right here. So what you're going to do is you're basically just going to fold this flap over, fold down so that you're on the existing creases with these 2 points here. You have this 3-dimensional bit here, and you basically just turn that inside out and then fold it down so that it becomes somewhat of it's concave as opposed to convex, and that tucks nicely into the square of the base. And if we take a look at this from the inside now, it's really just this flap is folded over to the right, and then you fold down. And we do that on all sides. So again, the edge is pointing, this edge is on the right, and we turn this flap inside out, and then fold down. We press everything into place. And we do the same thing here. So we fold, here's the flap, turn that inside out, and then fold down. Push so that these are together. Here's the edge pointing to the right, turn this inside out, and then we fold down. So this is a pretty interesting vessel, if you will. It's a little boring, but I don't like how these flaps are just sort of sticking out there. But this is the first step to our 3-dimensional pod base. The rest is fairly easy. What you're going to do is you're going to take a look at one of the corners, and you'll notice that there's an X, which essentially makes this a square. And what we'll be doing is we'll be bringing these 2 points together, folding along the existing crease there. So you might need to make some adjustments so you get a nice fold here. So we're essentially folding this point in half, right? And here are the existing crease lines. At this point, pretty much all of the crease lines are going to be existing. And we can see that when we bring these 2 points together and fold that in half, we have a flap. So we take this flap and we tuck it in this little pocket that was created when we folded that bit down and turn that inside out and all that kind of stuff. So that's why it's important for all of your inner flaps from that previous step where this edge is either pointing to the right or to the left. It's important that they be consistently pointing to the same spot, because we'll take this, we'll pinch and tuck. Move on to the next one. These 2 points here, pinch along the middle, gives us this flap, and then we tuck. Do the same thing. And then we tuck. And then we do the same thing here. And then we tuck the last one. And there is the pod box, mostly done. I like to do one more step just because I like to make it as clean as possible, but if you're happy with it at this point, you can leave it at this. Here's that original center square, and then here's that diamond shape, which then the center square went off onto all of the corners of the paper. But at this point, what I don't like is the fact that when you look at the rim, you see these 4 flaps just sort of sitting there. But what happens is there's already existing creases which will let you take this flap and fold it down, but you'll notice that the angle is within the little pocket there. So you just kind of have to push it and force it, and it's going to be on an existing crease. So you're not making any new creases, but you're just folding this down and it will tuck inside that flap. And that will kind of thin that wall up just a little bit, make it a little bit more consistent as opposed to being thin and then triple layer on this quadrant. And so here's the same deal. I'm just going to push that down. Again, I'm folding on an existing diagonal that already is there. And you just flatten it nicely. Fold this down. See how that kind of pushes that up a little bit? You just let that, and it'll flatten back down once that corner gets pushed all the way down. And the same thing here. And so there, with that, is the little pod base. And what's kind of cool is it will change shape depending on the angle. So looking at it like this, it only looks so wide, but then if you turn it 45 degrees, it almost doubles in width. And then if you turn it back, it's narrow again. But yet, when you look at it, it's kind of square. And then you can stretch and pull and round out these so that you give some curvature and some softness to this opening, if you'd like. Which is nice. We go from very angular to a nice soft, round, almost circular opening there. And there you have it. Pod base. Thank you much.